Hello, Craig. How are you?
Yeah, hey Fernanda, good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good as well. It's a
Excellent.
pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh, yeah, my name is Fernanda Brunoro. I'm interior architect, and in the past 25 years, I have been working in the interior design sector, working with different ranges of projects, from high budget to low budget, in the retail, interior design of hotels, and also more towards real estate in PBSA, build to rent, and also mixed-use buildings. So this was very important to have a different view and a different projects and how to work with low budgets and high budgets.
Yeah,
I'm founder of FB Creative Consultants and Design, which is specialized in hospitality and real estate. Our main service are interior design and design direction towards the strategy. So we help our clients to be ahead of the market shift, to transform trends in practical solutions. We try to bring a visionary view, and also to manage all the phases from the concept to the completion, delivering sustainable, driven, and cutting-edge spaces. We are always trying to encourage innovation and embrace circular economy, thinking differently, and also challenge the established. And new technologies as well, in order to bring sustainable spaces and ready for tomorrow.
brilliant.
Yeah, so I think the main idea of us is that. So we'd like to shape the future of real estate and hospitality industry, and reimagine in a different way, and bring a more human-centered focus and in well-being and sustainability. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate that, Fernanda. And there's a couple of things I just wanted to ask about, actually. So the 2 points that you mentioned right at the end, so the well-being aspects and sustainability, how much are you hearing from your clients and potential clients in terms of sustainability? How do they prioritize that in terms of a need or a desire or a must-have? You know, the building and the fit-out must include sustainability. Are you hearing that as a common narrative and something that people are desperately striving for?
They are not desperate to have it, but yeah, I think it's something that we cannot. That's important to think about it, and something that they speak about it. This sometimes is one of the reasons that they hire you.
Yeah,
So then, of course, depending on the project, on the budget of the project, this doesn't. This is not a real thing that they. I mean, what I mean is, like, if you select a material that's sustainable material and it's much more expensive than a normal material, it might not be used, even if the impact will be very important.
yeah,
So one of the ways to convince sometimes the client, even if they wish to meet this commitment, I think, is to show them in how many square meters they will use that thing, and
yeah,
what are the impacts that this will create.
yeah,
Because I think, with the BREEAM rates, they in the construction side, they already are doing something towards the sustainability. So they might don't really see the interior part as something that really impacts at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you mentioned there obviously about BREEAM, and obviously in construction that there's a lot of emphasis right now on what we're seeing more so in pre-construction. So a lot of focus goes into the pre-construction design and the ratings and the frameworks that are there. What we've recognized and we've mapped out actually in post-construction, there's less emphasis. So there's a lot of intrigue and interest and pressure put up front, but that very rarely seems to translate all the way through into the finished product. So there seems to be a bit of a disconnect between that. And I wonder if that's similar then with what you're seeing, is that the conversation is around sustainability and the environment at the start, but there's mechanisms and there's challenges along the contractual route that means that actually getting it implemented as a finished product requires a lot more work rather than just an upfront conversation.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you see most of those, let's say, sustainable or recyclable or circular economy products from the circular economy. You see they used in something that's very clear for who is seeing that. So behind the scenes, so let's say if you are in the corridor of the student's house, maybe you don't see that importance because the main area that they want to see those products is in the ground floor, where is the part that you really see that. See,
yeah, high visual impact.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
I think more and more this is changing.
Yeah.
Because there is a importance for that, and the laws are obliging that this change in a way to achieve, and this will impact also the selection of materials at the end.
Yeah, yeah. We, on the pre-construction side and supporting our clients with design, we're constantly challenged with contractors that may offer what they call value engineering, which in real terms is cost engineering. So the cost is reduced, but equally the value is reduced. You're not enhancing the value. And the bit that we try and translate that into for our clients is that there may be a short-term capex improvement, so you're reducing your capex costs, but there's definitely a near-term OPEX impact. So your operational costs are going to increase because there's a negative impact on your energy intensity and your energy efficiency. Is it easy to translate that within the fit-out world and the architectural side to say, actually, if you make a short-term decision now, it will ultimately impact the long-term? So whether it's from ongoing maintenance of product, or it might be that because the capex is lower up front, that it's an inferior product, and so it may not last as long. Do you see those sorts of points of correlation?
Yeah, I think it's much more visible in the construction. You have like upfront costs. By the end of the day, this will be investment, right?
Yeah.
So I think the ROI is much more visible in this kind of situation. That in long term we will have like a saving, either saving or other savings. But in the interior design side, I think it's more difficult to real impact in this way, because most of the time they know that in 5-10 years they will need to renovate that. So it will really depend, I think, in the core of the brand. What for them is really important. So if this is a real thing for them, then this part will be a real there will be a real importance, and they will evaluate that as something that will impact, and it will be appealing for the client that we use that space, right?
Yeah,
because this
definitely.
is something that at the end you can also this is or also make your space have a differential impact if it's real sustainable, if the materials are really thought in a way that's impacting the environment, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And from a material supply perspective and product supply, are you seeing that the manufacturers are starting to lean in more on the sustainability um, point of sale improvement, so that if you can give it a sustainable credential, that there's potentially more market need for it? Do you see that they are fully on board with the fact that you've got to provide sustainable products and substantiate how sustainable those products are?
I think if you compare to maybe with fashion industry, you see like our industry maybe is not that fast because it started after that afterwards. But I believe it is. There is companies that already are using renewable energy and other ways to produce their material, such as agar, for example, and also other companies are talking about circular economy, sustainability, and they also help at the end, because circular economy, at the end of the day, you have to build the whole process, right?
Yeah.
And companies such as Target, they are really keen on that. We face like a problem in the carpets of a hotel. We stain in the carpet, and we start to speak to Target if we could avoid that, and they help us how to deal with the problem.
Okay, yeah.
And we do like to put some different material to in order to avoid this, and then they say if you add extra material on that, then at the end of the process, if you need to do the recyclable process, this is not to be good for the circular economy process.
Okay,
So
yeah.
there are companies that are really keen, and their speech is real.
Yeah.
There is a real commitment, let's say
Yeah.
in this way.
Yeah, not just a greenwashing effect to say the
Exactly.
material meets standards, but actually it does. They recognize that there is a real impact, and if you make a decision in one way, in one direction, that will impact the circular economy approach, because it means that you can't maybe recycle the product once it's reached its end of life. So yeah, that is interesting. And what seems to be the biggest challenge for yourselves as an organization at the moment, or in terms of the wider market view as well? So it might not directly just impact yourselves, but where do you see some of the biggest challenges presently?
I think there is a kind of uncertainty in the market, which might affect the construction, and this at the end of the day impacting our service, right? So I think that's why it's important to be ahead and listen to trends and predict what's the next thing, like what you are really doing, right? You were talking the other day about the commitment of your company, but you already seen in advance what's the next point. So I think this is really important for all the sectors in order to be very competitive, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're right. I think there's so many geopolitical influences, challenges post-COVID with work from home and return to office policies, and just the landscape in terms of the amount of transactions taking place within real estate is probably at its all-time low. So there's probably capital out there, but people are unwilling to spend capital at the moment, whilst there's so much uncertainty. as you've mentioned. And I think the challenge we see is trying to get people into that thought process of, well, there's a short-term impact, there's a short-term challenge to overcome. With our clients, we give them the thought and the framework to think beyond net zero. So don't just think about the next 1 or 2 years. It's actually think maybe in 10 or 15 years time, when all buildings can potentially be decarbonised, the grid is decarbonised, and actually that gives you a different landscape, because potentially utilities become a lot more volatile because of supply and demand. They don't match up together anymore because renewable energy becomes more uncertain in terms of supply capacity, and more energy storage is required. And so that all of a sudden puts you into a landscape where there's a risk, but equally there could be an opportunity, because if you've got a building that's energy independent and decarbonised, then you have the ability to play within that energy market. So that forward future thinking helps dictate your short-term investment strategies and the projects that you might implement. So that there is the short-term challenges, but we try and give people that longer-term thought process and focus, because it helps then guide what they should be doing right now, and it might change ultimately what happens. And I suppose from your perspective, having an understanding of what the client wants to do with the building in the next 5, 10, 15 years will also help create a vision for what materials could be utilised, how durable they need to be, how that impacts from a circular economy perspective, and equally how you might be able to repurpose some of those things at a later date and reuse them.
Definitely. Yeah, totally agree. And also we need to think about the logistic process, right? Because there are some companies that they might use like the marble that there is in the floor, but they will do a different flooring. So they remove it and they store it, and then they reutilize in a different way. Yeah, so you have to think about logistic as well, and how we will deal with that, and which kind of new strategies you have to do. Also, I think also we try to work with products that are close to us, right?
Yeah.
To avoid the transport and these kind of things. Yeah, I think, but also talking about the previous thing that you were talking, the challenge that we are facing. On the other hand, I've listened some trends that they trend that this year there will be a lot of investment towards the PSA, the student accommodation, and a lot of openings. And you start to listen already that some real estate that owns the PBSA, they are talking about these carbonizations and this kind of commitments. So I think the whole industry is going towards that. The thing is that I think it needs, it's so global at the end. It's not just about one player. It's so many players that have to play together.
Yeah.
And you might need to start the conversation at the beginning, and you have to also how can I say? Maybe all the parts of the process need to speak more.
Yeah. Like
the MIP or even the sustainable specialist with the interior design and also with the client. I think that it's very important that the different sectors speak and they coordinate better.
They collaborate with the client.
They collaborate exactly in a different way. Because most of the time we do this in the same way, right? And probably there is a way to predict the usability of the building and where the guests or the tenants will be, in order to change sensor position or tech and smart tech also in a way that to reduce CO2 or energy, or how it impact at the end those savings and also the emission of CO2.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point, because it's that collaboration at the start of the project where everybody can become aligned with the same outcome. So rather than the developer or the asset owner having their own vision of what they want to create, everybody has a chance to feed into that. Everybody has a chance to impact it, and everybody's focused to achieve the same thing. Whereas I think, unfortunately, especially in construction at the moment, everybody is siloed. They're set to compete against one another contractually and commercially, and then from a program, the challenge is always trying to understand what a program looks like. There's a program that exists, but unfortunately nobody wants to share it, because it just means that there's a means for people to work against each other. So that collaborative approach definitely adds value from the client's perspective, and also from the people that are working on those projects, because it just means that everybody is working towards the same goal, rather than trying to protect and cover a position, which doesn't work in the long run. Yeah, and within those sectors then, so PBSA, we see that as a big growth sector as well. From our perspective, lots of PBSA developments are run from energy centres that have been seen to be very inefficient, even though it's a growth area for the UK government for new builds to be connected to energy centres rather than centralised systems. There's still challenges around design, installation, implementation and operation of those systems. But do you see that that's a big area of growth for you and PB Creative as well? Sorry, FB Creative.
Yeah, I just say yes.
Yeah.
There is a lot of investment and also necessity of more beds, and not only in the UK but also here in Spain. So there are a lot of opportunity, and the idea is to build more.
Yeah. It's an area whereby there's a genuine opportunity, because you can also create more of those environments where people work and live and operate in a much more not necessarily insular, but in a reduced footprint. So ultimately, it has a direct impact as well in terms of reduced amount of travel time, additional emissions from travelling on different forms of public transport or personal transport. So it's good that you can create those environments where people can work and collaborate as a collective and live in the same area as they're going to be potentially working within as well, or studying from a student perspective. So it's interesting as a market sector, because it has the potential to help develop the opportunity to drive energy efficiency and reduce carbon emissions by being able to have a much more succinct development.
Definitely, and if you think that most of them are young people, they need to build a system that is save energy is very important. Also because the ROI needs to be high. This is one of the most important thing for them. But on the other hand, if you think about the Z and the next alpha, the generation that will be in those buildings soon, these the generation, they are very keen on the sustainability element. So I think this at the end, even if we know that there is this pressure for a pressure, but on the other hand, a necessity of change of towards this commitment that you were talking, it's also important for them as a connection, of their values. So at the end of the day, sometimes also when you're building a brand or a space to people feel connected, you need to create something that is towards their values. So I think this is very important, because it's not only like the external government or the laws. It's also something that's the person that use that space. So this is important at the end, no?
Yeah, definitely. They do feel as though they're more climate conscious as a generation than perhaps we were going back a few years, but they seem to have adopted the fact that there's a real opportunity to affect climate change, and they want to fully embody what that looks like in terms of a lifestyle, and the decisions that they make will have a future impact as well. The challenge we have right now is to try and slow down the impact of climate change. And that's something that I think, again, as an industry, as a sector, and industry as a whole, we're still challenged with to a certain extent. Whilst there's acknowledgement and there's some strong targets that have been set, it still seems to be relatively slow progress in terms of the amount of time that we've got to make a material change and reduce the impact of climate. So it's interesting for us as an organisation, as BFY Carbon Strategies, and communicating and working with people like yourself. So we obviously work with different at different ends of the scale, but actually, again, as you mentioned earlier, that collective collaboration helps form a principle that the developers can work with from an initial concept right through to delivery, ensuring that those outcomes and that objective is achieved. And I think that's the key thing. So, it's good to have these sorts of conversations and get a different perspective, but also understand how it can all materially impact one another as well.
Totally agree. And this kind of conversation needs to have not only in our side, like in the universities, in the schools. There is a need of education to teach people how this is important, and small impacts will impact at the end.
Yeah.
Because if everyone starts from like the way that you approach things, at the end of the day, this is a massive change. Of course, when we are talking about construction and in a big scale, as we are talking, this is very impactful. I was reading that in Spain, from 2005 to 2023, in the industry, in the construction, they achieve a little bit more of 50% of reduction in CO2. So if all the industry, they start to do movements towards that, this will really impact and help. But you see, we are talking about BREEAM, which is excellent, and we know that they are reducing the CO2. This is not enough as the commitment of 2050.
Exactly.
So we need to really work further and to achieve this kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, we are key players to stimulate in the industry to make this shift which is very important to achieve that, because at the end the climate change and all the things that are happening with the ice, and it's so important.
It is, yeah. It's detrimental, isn't it? If change doesn't happen now, there will be a detrimental shift that's going to be to the disadvantage of everybody. And our chairperson, actually, Kevin McCulloch, he always talks about it. How can you go deeper, faster? So we know what we can achieve, but how can we achieve it quicker? How can we help our clients to fully understand what the art of the possible is, and help take them on that journey and deliver outcomes that everybody is aligned with? But I think the challenge that we've seen to a certain extent, though, still, as you touched on earlier, it relates to the fact that there's education within the universities and within the schools. To a certain extent, we still see that there's education that's needed within the professionals, those that are already operating within industry or actually operating buildings, because that again, they're probably targeted with big goals and big expectations, but there's a level of depth of understanding, especially around net zero carbon and climate change and sustainability, where there's so many different terms that are utilized, there's so many different ways in which they can be applied or misapplied. I think people end up getting a bit lost within the narrative. And so there's almost an element of paralysis that's created because there's so much noise. And so we find that there's still a process of educating the clients to understand where they are at the moment, what it means to get to that position, and ultimately, how do you bridge that gap? What's the delta, and how do you bridge that gap? And do you find that it's a similar conversation that takes place with your clients as well?
Yeah, I do. I was thinking about it. That's why I think your practice, for example, is like a key bridge
Yeah,
between this gap, about ambition and
conduit.
execution, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah,
And yeah, definitely, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I do
yeah.
agree. Yeah.
And I think it will come, but we're probably still at the bottom of that hockey stick uptake in terms of natural adoption of technologies and practices that means that you no longer have to challenge the norm to think about developing a decarbonised building or implementing products that are sustainable, but that becomes the norm. And then eventually people think again, okay, so what is the next step? But in order to get there, I think there is a real steep upward learning curve and adoption of that as a process to get there. So it's good that organizations like ourselves are there to support the client, to work with them, to help them achieve their expectations, and hopefully more, go much further beyond from where they are at this particular point in time.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I was thinking, I think in the construction sites, but I mean, as they are always calculating structure and so on. Maybe it's more achievable, how much they are saving CO2 or what this will impact at the end.
Mm,
What I think is in the interior design side, this is not so visible.
mm,
The information is not too effective,
yeah, yeah,
So maybe it needs to be more trackable.
yeah,
The information to we also understand, because at the end of the day there are some sustainable materials that they might need more energy, or do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So it might be sustainable, which is good, but we need to understand how is the process to create this sustainable
yeah,
product.
yeah. It might be more
Uh,
energy intensive to create it. Mm,
exactly. So I think sometimes we don't really think about it, if something is really sustainable or not.
mm,
Um, and also about circular economy.
yeah,
If we think that everything is food, right?
yeah,
Is a different of way of thinking.
yeah,
If you think about the metals, no, and you reuse that, this will impact a lot. Also in the way that you construct elements, even in a mobile, for example,
yeah,
So I think at the end of the day, the way that we design has been changed, but there's
mm,
a lot to do.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. That thought process of the whole life cycle carbon calculation. So from embodied carbon, from the manufacturing process through to the operational carbon, and then the end of life carbon impact as well. There's still each area operates in isolation probably from the other, and it's still from a client's perspective difficult to understand the impact of each of those and get visibility of the data that supports it as well. So they need to be led and guided through that process, but it would be great if it's visible. you know, and that's something that the manufacturers helped supply and worked on.
Exactly, because right now, if you go to the webs of the suppliers, they are talking already about this commitment of carbon zero, or they will reduce in 30% or 20%, or they have reduced already, but you don't know how much is this reduction at the end of the day.
Nah.
You know, and they might reduce, but they might be using more water, so
Yeah.
it's something, it's very generic sometimes, the information. So, but step by step, I think it's important. We are getting there, and it will need people that is always constantly thinking about it and taking this in consideration. And this will improve every day. The way that this material today is good, and maybe tomorrow is not any longer good. And new technology needs to be developed to this enhance the things, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, that's interesting. Look, really appreciate that, Fernanda. I think there's been some great points there. If there's any takeaway point that you would like to give people, or a final thought in terms of maybe how you approach things, and maybe a thought you want to leave with the people watching this.
My God. I think yeah, I just would like to thank you for the opportunity.
No problem.
I think this is very good. It's always good to speak to someone that understands better than you.
Well, we'll wait.
about what we are talking. I think what I would really appreciate if in the day-by-day work, there would be more collaborative partnerships towards what we need to achieve. Because if this is really is something that we need to achieve, but we want to achieve, I believe this will be easier to achieve, right? And at the end of the day, everyone will see the impact and the necessity that this is important. So I think the partnership here is key, and the education part for the people that are coming to the sector. Even if we talk a lot about sustainability, I think the deepness of the things and the information needs to be more visible for everyone. What this will impact at the end. Otherwise, the real impact is not effective. What we are trying to achieve. I think.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's awesome. So collaborate for the same outcome, and try and inspire and teach and share the learning so that everybody can accelerate the journey and achieve the same things. So that's great. No, really appreciate it, Fernanda. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Craig.
No problem.